Barron Trump's NYU life versus Kamala Harris's 2025 political comeback, a Gen Z clash. In 2025, two figures from vastly different spheres of American life, Barron Trump, the youngest son of President Donald Trump, and Kamala Harris, former vice president and potential California gubernatorial candidate, are capturing the attention of Generation Z. As Barron navigates his freshman year at New York University's Stern School of Business, his low-profile yet tech-influenced presence sparks curiosity among young Americans. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris, after a bruising 2024 presidential election loss, is re-emerging with fiery speeches and eyeing a 2026 run for California governor, positioning herself as a Democratic stalwart against the Trump administration. On platforms like X, these two figures have become unlikely focal points in a cultural and political clash, with Gen Z users debating their relevance, influence, and visions for America's future. This exploration compares Barron Trump's NYU life and Kamala Harris's political comeback, examining their paths, their appeal to Gen Z, and the broader implications of their influence. From Barron's tech-savvy role in his father's 2024 campaign to Harris's post-election efforts to rally Democrats, we unpack how these figures resonate with a generation shaped by social media, economic uncertainty, and political polarization. Through this lens, we also analyze the X debates that frame them as avatars of contrasting ideologies, offering insights into Gen Z's evolving priorities in 2025. Barron Trump at NYU, a quiet presence with loud implications. A new chapter at Stern. In August 2024, Barron Trump enrolled at New York University's Stern School of Business, marking his first major step into public life as an adult. At 18, the youngest Trump child has largely avoided the spotlight, unlike his older siblings, who have been fixtures in their father's political and business ventures. Standing at 6 feet 9 inches and known for his reserved demeanor, Barron's transition to college life in Manhattan, a liberal bastion far from his father's Mar-a-Lago stronghold, has intrigued observers. His choice of Stern, a top-tier business school, suggests ambition, possibly in finance, tech, or entrepreneurship, aligning with the Trump family's business legacy. Barron's NYU life is notably low-key. Reports indicate he commutes from Trump Tower rather than living in dorms, accompanied by Secret Service agents due to his father's return to the presidency in January 2025. Unlike typical freshmen, Barron avoids campus social scenes, with sources describing him as focused on studies and private. Yet, his presence at NYU, a university known for its diverse and progressive student body, raises questions about how he navigates an environment often at odds with his father's politics. X posts from NYU students range from curiosity, saw Barron in the library, dude's tall but super quiet, to skepticism, why's a Trump here? Stern's not MAGA central. These reactions reflect Gen Z's mixed feelings about Barron. Some see him as a blank slate, others as an extension of his father's polarizing legacy. Tech-savvy campaign role. While Barron's college life is subdued, his behind-the-scenes role in Donald Trump's 2024 campaign has amplified his Gen Z relevance. Described by his father as a tech genius, Barron advised the campaign on digital strategy, particularly targeting young male voters through non-traditional media. He introduced Trump to platforms like Kick, where the former president appeared with streamer Aiden Ross, and facilitated interviews with influencers like Logan Paul. Barron's best friend, 17-year-old right-wing influencer Bo Loudon, also played a role, amplifying Trump's message on TikTok and X. These efforts helped Trump narrow the gap with Kamala Harris among young voters, especially men, in 2024. A Tufts University study noted that 56% of young men voted for Trump in 2024, a flip from 56% for Biden in 2020, with Barron's digital outreach cited as a factor. On X, Barron's campaign contributions sparked debates about his influence. Pro-Trump Gen Z users hailed him as a meme lord who gets the internet, while critics dismissed him as a nepo baby leveraging his father's platform. Posts like Barron's running the MAGA TikTok game while Kamala's stuck with coconut memes highlight the generational divide in how digital fluency shapes political appeal. Barron's tech savvy aligns with Gen Z's preference for authentic, platform-native content, giving him an edge over traditional politicians like Harris, whose social media presence, while viral in 2024, often felt curated. Gen Z perceptions of Barron's appeal to Gen Z is complex. Unlike his father, whose bombastic style alienates many young voters, Barron's reserved nature and tech focus make him a cipher, someone Gen Z can project onto. For conservative Gen Zers, he's a symbol of youthful MAGA energy, with ex-users praising his alpha demeanor and loyalty to Trump. For others, his privilege and family ties are points of contention. A Harvard Youth poll from spring 2025 found that only 15% of young Americans approve of President Trump, with 51% of financially struggling youth believing his policies will hurt them. Barron, by association, inherits this skepticism, with ex-posts questioning his real-world experience, yet, Barron's NYU life offers a counterpoint. His choice to attend a prestigious, urban university suggests a desire to carve his own path, distinct from Mar-a-Lago's insular world. Speculation about his interests, coding, crypto, or gaming, resonates with Gen Z's entrepreneurial and tech-driven ethos. If Barron leverages his Stern education to launch a startup or advocate for tech policies, he could bridge the gap between MAGA's traditional base and Gen Z's digital frontier, a prospect that excites his supporters on X. Kamala Harris's 2025 comeback, a political phoenix, post-election retreat and re-emergence after losing the 2024 presidential election to Donald Trump, Kamala Harris returned to California, retreating from the national stage. For the first 100 days of Trump's second term, she remained largely silent, grappling with her defeat and the Democratic Party's loss of the Senate. Her absence fueled speculation about her political future, with some allies urging a 2028 presidential run and others suggesting a 2026 bid for California governor, as Governor Gavin Newsom's term limits create an open race. By April 2025, Harris began re-emerging, delivering her first major speech at the Emerge Gala in San Francisco, where she condemned Trump's reckless tariffs and warned of a constitutional crisis. Harris's comeback is strategic. Her speeches target Democratic priorities, abortion rights, climate change, and economic justice, while framing Trump's policies as authoritarian. At the Leading Women Defined Summit in Dana Point, she urged Democrats to resist fear and capitulation, signaling her intent to lead the opposition. These remarks resonate with Gen Z women, 60% of whom viewed her potential presidency as a historic milestone in 2024, per an AEI survey. However, her 2024 loss exposed vulnerabilities, particularly among young men, who shifted toward Trump. Harris's 2025 efforts aim to rebuild trust with this demographic while consolidating her base. The California governor race. A potential 2026 run for California governor is Harris's most likely next step. A Politico UC Berkeley poll found 33% of California Democrats felt joyful about her candidacy, though 20% of political insiders were irritated, citing her uneven popularity in the state. Harris's advantages include near-universal name recognition, a robust fundraising network, and ties to California's political elite, like Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis, who may defer to her. However, challengers like former Health Secretary Xavier Becerra and former Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa could complicate her path, especially if Latino voters, who shifted toward Trump in 2024, remain lukewarm. California Republicans see Harris's potential run as an opportunity. They argue she represents one-party rule and lacks the change voters crave, with GOP strategists hoping to nationalize the race to attract donors. Yet, Harris's 59% vote share in California in 2024, though lower than Biden's 2020 performance, underscores her strength in the blue state. If she runs, Harris could use the governor's mansion as a platform to challenge Trump's policies, particularly on immigration and climate, appealing to Gen Z's progressive wing. Gen Z and Harris's appeal. Harris's relationship with Gen Z is both her strength and her challenge. In 2024, she led Trump by 20 to 31 points among young voters, per polls from CNBC, Harvard, and NBC. Her TikTok presence, run by a Gen Z team, went viral with Coconut Army memes and Charlie XCX endorsements, boosting her among young women. A UCLA study found that 29.3% of previously unmotivated Gen Z voters were inspired to vote for Harris after her nomination. However, her lead among young men was razor-thin, with immigration, a Trump-strong suit, eroding her support. In 2025, Harris's comeback speeches emphasize issues Gen Z cares about: economic opportunity, mental health, and climate action. Her critique of Trump's tariffs, which she claims raise living costs, aligns with the 44% of young voters who prioritize the economy. Yet, X debates reveal skepticism. Some Gen Z users call her inauthentic, contrasting her polished speeches with Barron's low-key digital fluency. Posts like, "Kamala's out here giving TED Talks while Barron's memeing with Aiden Ross," reflect a generational preference for unfiltered communication. Harris's challenge is to recapture the organic energy of her 2024 campaign while addressing young voters' economic anxieties. The Gen Z clash, X debates and cultural divide. X as the battleground. On X, Barron Trump and Kamala Harris have become proxies for a broader Gen Z clash over ideology, authenticity, and influence. The platform, with its real-time pulse on youth culture, amplifies their differences. Barron's supporters frame him as a Gen Z king who understands the internet's chaotic energy, citing his campaign role and NYU presence as proof of his relatability. Harris's backers counter that she's a proven leader fighting for progressive values, with her 2025 speeches showcasing resilience against a MAGA resurgence. These debates reflect Gen Z's polarization, with 42% of young Americans lacking confidence in a peaceful political transition, per a Harvard poll. The Barron versus Kamala narrative gained traction after Harris's April 2025 speech, when X users juxtaposed her constitutional crisis warnings with Barron's quiet NYU life. Posts like, "Kamala's preaching doom while Barron's just chilling at Stern, who's more Gen Z," highlight a divide. Harris represents institutional politics, while Barron embodies a detached, individualistic ethos. This clash mirrors Gen Z's broader distrust of institutions, with only 19% trusting the federal government, per Harvard's 2025 poll. Gender and ideological splits. Gender plays a significant role in the Gen Z clash. Young women overwhelmingly favored Harris in 2024, with 60% supporting her, driven by her stance on abortion and gender equity. Young men, however, lean toward Trump, with 48% backing him in some polls, drawn to his masculinity and economic promises. Barron, as a young male tied to Trump's brand, resonates with this demographic, especially those active in bro culture on X. Harris struggles to counter this, with her 2025 speeches focusing on systemic issues that resonate more with women and progressives. Ideologically, the clash reflects Gen Z's split priorities. Harris aligns with Democrats' emphasis on diversity and inclusion, valued by 9% of young Americans, per Harvard. Barron, by association with Trump, appeals to those prioritizing economic opportunity, a top concern for Republicans. X posts amplify this divide, with pro-Harris users sharing clips of her speeches and pro-Barron users memeing his Sigma male vibe. The debate underscores Gen Z's struggle to define American identity, with individual rights as a rare point of agreement. Authenticity and digital fluency. Authenticity is a key battleground. Harris's 2024 TikTok success showed she can harness Gen Z's digital culture, but her 2025 speeches feel more traditional, risking disconnection. Barron's minimal public presence, combined with his campaign's digital wins, gives him an air of effortless authenticity. X users contrast Harris's scripted rhetoric with Barron's vibes-based appeal, reflecting Gen Z's preference for raw, platform-native content. A UCLA study noted that 56.4% of Gen Zers who follow news supported Harris, but 70% of those who don't were unsure or opposed, suggesting Barron's low-profile approach may resonate with the disengaged. Comparative analysis, paths and influence. Paths to influence. Barron and Harris represent divergent paths to influence. Barron's is indirect, shaped by his family's legacy and his tech-driven campaign role. At NYU, he's building credentials that could lead to a public-facing career, perhaps in tech or politics, but his current influence is speculative, rooted in X-hype and his father's platform. Harris's path is institutional, built on decades in public service, district attorney, attorney general, senator, vice president. Her 2025 comeback leverages this experience, positioning her as a Democratic leader with a proven track record, though her electoral losses temper her appeal. Barron's youth, 18, gives him time to define himself, potentially outgrowing his father's shadow. Harris, at 60, faces pressure to deliver results quickly, especially if she runs for governor. Her ability to shape California policy could solidify her Gen Z support, but a failed run risks ending her career. Barron's low-stakes contrast with Harris's high-stakes gamble, making their 2025 trajectories a study in potential versus proven impact. Influence on Gen Z. Barron's influence is niche but growing. His campaign role showed he can sway young men through digital channels, and his NYU presence makes him a relatable figure for conservative Gen Zers. However, his lack of public statements limits his broader appeal, and his father's 15% approval among youth constrains his reach. Harris's influence is wider but polarized. Her 2024 lead among young voters and 2025 speeches show she can mobilize progressives, especially women, but her struggle with young men and X-skepticism highlight gaps. Her potential governorship could amplify her influence, addressing Gen Z issues like housing and climate directly. Both figures tap into Gen Z's priorities differently. Barron's tech focus aligns with their entrepreneurial aspirations, while Harris's policy emphasis addresses their systemic concerns. X debates suggest neither fully captures Gen Z's heart, with many young users expressing disillusionment. Barron's just a kid, Kamala's just politics. Their clash is less about personal rivalry than about what Gen Z wants: authenticity, opportunity, or reform. Broader implications. The Barron-Harris clash reflects America's cultural and political fault lines. Barron represents a MAGA-inflected future, where digital influence and individual ambition trump institutional loyalty. Harris embodies a democratic vision of systemic change, rooted in diversity and governance. For Gen Z, caught between economic precarity, 41%, barely getting by, and social disconnection, 17% feel deep community, these figures offer competing blueprints. The X debates also highlight Gen Z's role in shaping discourse. With 41 million eligible voters in 2024, their influence is undeniable, yet only 79% plan to vote when peers do, per Harvard. Barron and Harris must navigate this peer-driven dynamic, with Barron's digital edge and Harris's institutional credibility vying for attention. Their 2025 clash foreshadows 2028, when Gen Z's electoral power will peak, deciding whether America leans toward disruption or reform. Conclusion. A clash of symbols. Barron Trump's NYU life and Kamala Harris's 2025 comeback are less a direct rivalry than a symbolic clash, amplified by Gen Z's X debates. Barron, with his tech fluency and enigmatic presence, represents a new guard of conservative youth, untested but potent. Harris, with her seasoned leadership and progressive vision, embodies resilience against a resurgent MAGA movement. For Gen Z, navigating financial hardship, political distrust, and digital overload, these figures offer contrasting paths, one of disruption, the other of reform. As Barron studies at Stern and Harris weighs a gubernatorial run, their influence on Gen Z will depend on authenticity and relevance. Barron's low-profile appeal could grow if he leverages his education and tech skills, while Harris's comeback hinges on recapturing her 2024 energy and addressing young men's concerns. On X, where memes and manifestos collide, the Barron versus Kamala narrative captures a generation's search for meaning in a polarized world. Whether they clash or coexist, their stories in 2025 signal Gen Z's rising power to shape America's future.